For 20 years, Michael Harris mopped the same floors, cleaned the same windows, fixed the same broken chairs, emptied the same bins every single morning before the first bell rang. For 20 years, nobody at Riverside Academy said his name correctly. The teachers called him the janitor, the parents called him the help, the students called him worse, and the Principal Donna Hayes, called him nothing at all. Because to her, Michael Harris was invisible. 10 years after he left, he walked back through those doors, not with a mop, with a briefcase, and the deed to the building. Before we go any further, drop a comment and tell us where in the world you are, watching from right now. And if you are not yet subscribed to Turning Point Tales, hit that subscribe button now. This story is only getting started. Michael Harris was not always a janitor. At 26, he had his own small construction business, 3 employees, contracts coming in, a future he had built with his own hands. Then the recession hit, not softly, hard. The contracts disappeared. The employees had to go. The savings lasted 8 months. He had a wife named Carol, a son named James who was 4 years old, and a mortgage that did not care about recessions. A friend told him about a position at Riverside Academy, maintenance staff. Steady pay, benefits. It was not what Michael had planned. But James needed school shoes. Carol needed the stress to stop. Michael said yes. He told himself it was temporary. He was 32 years old when he walked through the service entrance of Riverside Academy for the first time. He was 52 when he walked back out. Riverside Academy was one of the oldest private schools in the city. Expensive fees, wealthy parents, a reputation that the staff wore like a uniform. Michael learned the school the way only a maintenance man can learn a building. Every pipe that rattled in winter, every window that leaked when it rained, every classroom door that needed the handle lifted slightly to close properly. He knew this building better than anyone alive, and the building did not know him at all. Teachers walked past him in hallways without looking up. He held doors open. Nobody said thank you. Parents arrived for events in expensive cars, handed him their coats without making eye contact, collected them the same way. He was furniture, useful, present, invisible. He did not complain. He went home every evening to Carol and James. He ate dinner at the table. He helped James with homework. He watched the news. He went to bed. And he came back the next morning. Because James needed school shoes, and Carol needed the stress to stop. And Michael Harris kept his word. Principal Donna Hayes arrived at Riverside Academy in Michael's 8th year. She was the kind of leader who confused authority with importance. The kind of person who was kind to the people above her and dismissive to the people below her. And Michael was as far below her as she could imagine. In her first week, she walked past Michael mopping a corridor. She stopped, said, "You missed a spot," pointed at a patch of floor he had not reached yet. Michael looked at her, said, "I am still working, ma'am," she said. "Well, work faster," and walked away. That was their relationship for 12 years. She called him by the wrong name in front of parents, called him George, called him Thomas, called him the janitor. Never Michael, never Mr. Harris. She sent him emails with lists of complaints, things he had missed, things done incorrectly, things that needed doing faster. She never once acknowledged what he had done right in 12 years. Not once. The worst moment came on a Tuesday afternoon in November. A parent had come in for a meeting, a wealthy woman in an expensive coat. She was standing outside Hayes' office. Michael was nearby fixing a light fitting. Hayes came out of her office, saw the parent, smiled, then saw Michael on the ladder. She said, in front of the parent, she said, "Can you try to be less visible when parents are here? It does not look good." The parent looked at Michael, then looked away. Michael came down from the ladder, picked up his bag, said nothing, went to the supply room, sat for a few minutes, then stood up, went back to work, because James needed school shoes, and Carol needed the stress to stop. There was one teacher. Her name was Sarah Okafor. She had been at the school 3 years when Michael arrived. She was the only person at Riverside Academy who said good morning to Michael every single day. Not sometimes, every day. She knew his son's name, asked about James when exams were coming, asked about Carol when she heard she had been unwell. Once, when Hayes had humiliated Michael in front of a group of parents at an open evening, Sarah found him afterward in the corridor. She said, "I am sorry about that. That was wrong. You do not deserve to be spoken to that way." Michael looked at her. He said, "Thank you, Sarah." He said it simply. But he meant it in the way you mean something when it is the only kindness you have received in a very long time. He never forgot it. What nobody at Riverside Academy knew, what nobody thought to ask, was what Michael did between 6 and 9 every morning before his shift started. He studied. Not for a qualification, not for a certificate. He studied the property market for 15 years, every morning, before the first bell, before the teachers arrived, before anyone needed floors mopped or windows cleaned. Michael Harris read. He had started at 35 almost by accident. A book left behind in a classroom, Introduction to Real Estate Investment. He had picked it up intending to put it in lost property. Read the first page instead, then the second. Took it home that evening. Finished it in 4 days, returned it to lost property. Went to the library the next Saturday. Got 6 more books on the same subject. By 40, he had read more about property investment than most professionals in the field. By 45, he had made his first small investment, a flat, modest, bought with savings built up over 12 years of steady income and careful living. Carol thought he was being cautious. She did not know how carefully he had been watching, how precisely he had been learning. He told her, "I am building something. It is going to take time, but I am building something." She believed him. She always believed him. By 50, he had 4 properties. Income coming in quietly, managed carefully. Nothing flashy, nothing that anyone at Riverside Academy would ever have connected to the man who mopped their floors. And then, in his 21st year at the school, at 52 years old, Michael Harris called the school office, spoke to the administrator, said, "Please tell Principal Hayes that I will be retiring at the end of the month." They organized a farewell party. Carol bought a cake. The party was scheduled for 4 o'clock on a Friday in the staff room. At 4:15, nobody had come. At 4:30, the administrator popped her head in, said she was sorry she could not stay, left. At 5 o'clock, Michael and Carol sat alone at the table, the cake between them. The staff room empty. Carol looked at him. Her eyes were bright. He reached over, cut 2 slices of cake, handed one to her. He said, "This is fine," she said, "Michael." He said, "This is fine, Carol." He said, "I did not come here for them. I came here for us. And we are done now." They ate the cake. Carol held his hand across the table. He looked around the empty staff room one last time. Then he stood up, said, "Let's go home." And they walked out of Riverside Academy together. 10 years passed. Michael and Carol moved to a bigger house. Not flashy, just right. James finished university, got a good job, got married, had a daughter they called Grace. Michael's property portfolio grew, carefully, steadily, the way he did everything. He sat on the board of a community housing trust. He mentored young people from the neighborhood who wanted to learn what he had learned. He was happy. The specific happiness of a man who had kept his word to himself and his family and had nothing left to prove. Then one morning James called. He said, "Dad, did you see the news?" Michael said, "Which news?" James said, "Riverside Academy. They are in financial trouble. They are looking for a buyer." Michael was quiet for a moment. He said, "I saw." James said, "Are you thinking what I think you are thinking?" Michael said, "I have been thinking about it for about 10 years. James laughed. Michael did not laugh. He picked up the phone, called his attorney. The purchase took 4 months. Michael's attorney handled everything. The school board dealt only with legal representatives. Nobody knew who the buyer was. Michael made sure of that. On the day of the announcement, a Thursday morning in September, the entire staff of Riverside Academy gathered in the main boardroom. Teachers, administrators, department heads, all of them waiting to meet their new owner. Principal Donna Hayes sat at the table. She had survived 3 principals before her and had been appointed head 6 years ago. She was secure. She was certain. The door opened. A black man in his 60s walked in, sharp dark suit, quiet, measured, moving like a man who knew exactly where he was going and had been going there for a long time. He took the seat at the head of the table. He looked around the room. Several people looked back with polite professional interest. One person looked back with something else entirely. Principal Hayes stared at him. The color left her face slowly, like water draining. She knew that face. She had spoken past it for 12 years. She had called it George and Thomas and the janitor. She had told it to be less visible. Michael looked at her. He said nothing yet. He looked at the room. He said, "Good morning. My name is Michael Harris." He paused. He said, "Some of you may remember me." He did not humiliate her. That is the part the people in that room expected. That is the part some of them were waiting for. He was professional. He went through his plans for the school, the changes he intended to make, the improvements, the direction, clear, specific, completely informed. The teachers around the table began to realize very quickly that this man understood the school better than any of them. The pipes that rattled in winter, the windows that leaked when it rained, the classroom doors that needed the handle lifted to close properly. He knew every detail, because he had spent 20 years learning this building, while everyone in it looked through him. At the end of the meeting, he asked if anyone had questions. A younger teacher raised her hand, said, "Mr. Harris, can I ask how you came to acquire the school?" Michael said, "I worked here for 20 years. I learned everything I could, and I invested what I earned," he said, carefully, quietly. For a long time, the room was silent. Then he said, "There is one staff member I want to personally acknowledge." He looked toward Sarah Okafor, who had been sitting at the far end of the table. Quiet, eyes wide, he said, "Sarah, you were the only person in this building who said good morning to me every single day for 18 years. He said, "Your position here is secure, and I would like to offer you the deputy head role if you are interested." Sarah stared at him. She said, "Michael," he said. "Mr. Harris in the building." She laughed. The room laughed. The tension broke. Everywhere except where Principal Hayes was sitting. Hayes requested a private meeting after the main one. Michael agreed. She sat across from him in his new office, the same office that had always been the principal's office. She looked different from the woman who had told him to be less visible. She said, "Mr. Harris, I want to say something." He waited. She said, "I did not treat you well over the years." "I know that," she said. "I am not sure what else to say." Michael looked at her. He said, "You do not need to say anything else." He said, "I am going to be honest with you. The way you treated me did not slow me down." He said, "It did not take anything from me," he said, "because what I was building had nothing to do with whether you saw me or not." He said, "I saw myself. That was enough." Hayes looked at him. She said, "Are you keeping me on?" Michael said, "That depends entirely on whether you can treat every person in this building the way they deserve to be treated, regardless of their role, regardless of their title." He said, "The cleaner, the cook, the maintenance staff, same as the teachers, same as the parents, same as the students." He said, "Can you do that?" Hayes was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "Yes." Michael said, "Then we will see." James asked his father that evening what it felt like, walking back into that building, sitting at the head of that table, seeing Donna Hayes' face. Michael thought about it for a moment. He said, "You know what I felt?" He said, "I felt the same thing I felt every morning for 20 years when I walked through that service entrance." He said, "Like I had work to do." James said, "That's it," Michael said. "That is it," he said. "People think the win is the moment everyone finally sees you," he said. "But the real win was every morning I showed up when nobody was watching. Every morning I studied before my shift. Every property I bought. Every decision I made quietly while everyone around me looked through me," he said. The boardroom was just the day everyone else caught up. James looked at his father. He said, "I want to be like you when I grow up." Michael said, "You already are." He said, "You just do not know it yet. Some people are seen immediately. Some people are never seen at all. And some people are building something so quietly and so carefully that by the time the world finally looks, there is nothing left to do but sit down at the head of the table that used to belong to someone else." Michael Harris mopped those floors for 20 years. Nobody saw him, but he saw everything, and that was always enough. If you enjoyed this story, please like this video and subscribe to Turning Point Tales. We will see you in the next one.